Hey guys, it's Michelle from Cozyegg, and this is episode 74. I had to look. Today is Monday, May 13th, 2019, Dark 13 Stitching. So if you are new here, thanks for joining and checking me out. If you are a returning viewer, thanks so much for coming back. I appreciate it. Let's get into it. So it's been a little over a month since the last time I recorded. I think the last time I recorded was on the 8th of April. So I have two finishes. And then what I thought I would do is kind of like I did last time. I thought I'd just sort of go through what I've worked on, kind of in order with regard to Magical Stitches homework, since that's ruling my life. So when last we met, I was getting ready to start on week 7 of year 3 at Hogwarts, which was friend versus friend. And the premise of that homework assignment was to work on 2 projects that have been vying for your attention. And so the first project that I chose to work on is actually my finish. So it took me several homework assignments to get this done, but it's done now. So here is Colonial Garden in all its glory. And we're not going to talk about how I did not center this on my fabric. So here is the piece. This is Colonial Garden by Plum Street Samplers. And I stitched it on 40 count Black Forest Lakeside Linen with the called for MPI silks. The chart for this, Paulette actually has it done in 2 colorways. You can stitch it on dark fabric like I did, or you can stitch it on lighter fabric. And the colors that she calls for, depending on what you're stitching on, varies, but both versions are included in the chart. So very sweet piece. Let me see if I can actually find something to hold up behind there to make life a little easier. Here, this will work perfect. That way you can't see through. So yeah, this is one of my Stitch 9 pieces this year. So this is the second Stitch 9 piece that I completed, and it's blowing this out. This is also on my magic list for Guild, which is magic stands for my annual good intentions contract. So I'm so happy to have this done. You don't even know. This took a lot of effort and a lot of pushing to get to the end. So yeah, so I worked on this for week 7 homework. This was vying for my attention because I was really wanting to get it done. So I worked on it a little bit for however many stitches I needed to. I think it was like 500 or something. And then and yeah, you can tell by the sound of my voice that I got stuff going on. So the other piece that I worked on that was vying for my attention, mostly because it was coming up on Dark 13 stitching that week. So the other piece was Blackened Sky. And I worked on this a couple of times, but the first time I worked on it was for this week 7 homework. So I'm working on the second block here, and let me fold this a little bit and see if we can get a little bit closer. So I didn't do all of this in that first homework assignment, but I did a good bit of it. And I don't remember if I talked about this in my last video, but when I was working on this tree previously, I got down to the bottom and realized I had some sort of issue because the bottom border that matches up with block 1 wasn't matching up with block 1. So after much debating of what to do, and once I figured out that my problem was not actually in block 2, my problem was in block 1, and I had started some of the words 1 row too low or too high, whichever. Anyway, so I ended up shorting this block by 1 row. But what I ended up doing was this row of diamonds that's underneath her feet. There's supposed to be a 1 line gap between where her feet are and where that row of diamonds goes. I chose to just run them up right up against her feet so that I would have a blank row between where the diamonds end and the border, because I wanted that little bit of float there. I didn't want to lose that. So I just ripped out all the diamonds that I had stitched, restitched them, moved that row up a little bit, and then there's black all the way around those diamonds that I still need to stitch. So I'm super close to finishing this block. That's actually the only thing I've left to do, is to fill in around those diamonds, and then that block is done. So I'm really happy with how it came out, and I love, 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 love the colors in this. I love these bright, kind of acid greens. I'm using the called for silks, and they are just luscious. They really are. I mean, I love these, mossy greens and the acid greens, and I can't get over it. So happy with it. So I worked on that for Dark 13 stitching in April, and also that week 7 homework. And then I decided to keep going on that one actually after I got my homework done, and I worked on an extra credit assignment, which was it had to do with Sirius Black was framed, so work on your frames. So that's why I went down here and actually stitched this frame. I completed the one here and then stitched the frame around the block below it so that I could count that for extra credit. So not exciting stitching, but it got me some extra credit points. So very happy with how this is coming together. It is stitched on, here's the whole piece. It is stitched on the called for 40 count vintage pear by Lakeside. Is that right? I think so. And I'm using the called for pure palette silks, which are luscious. So, yeah. And this is in my sugar skull bag. That was a gift. I had Colonial Garden and Blacked Sky both in here, and so now it's just Blacked Sky, which is kind of exciting. Okay, so then the next week, our homework assignment was Hogsmeade week, and so you had a couple different options. You could go to Hogsmeade and stitch on a project that that you could use for visiting one shop, or you could stitch on several projects and visit all of the shops in Hogsmeade, or a certain number of them, or you could stay behind at Hogwarts and do penalty stitches. So what I ended up doing that week really was a complete result of the fire at Notre Dame. So most of you probably know, because I think I've talked about it before, that I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in art history. And so art and architecture and the associated history are things that are very important to me. And so seeing, something happen like that with Notre Dame, seeing, something that has stood for 800 years go up in flames was heartbreaking. I posted about it on Instagram much more at length, but suffice to say, that night I felt like, my initial intention, I think, was to work on Colonial Garden some more and do some penalty stitches. But I decided that what I really wanted to work on that night was a piece that is very important to me, because of the connection to Paris. So I got out, and this is in my Tula Pink Parisville laminate bag. There's the inside. So this is a piece that has not been out for a while. And this is Justine sampler, or the French equivalent of that, Marquard de Justine. And so my friend Sylvia and I decided that we wanted to start this piece while we were in Paris together. And so that's what we did. And as well as I recall, I haven't actually gone back to my journal to look, but as well as I recall, we started this on our first day in Paris that morning, and that was the day that we went to see Notre Dame. So I felt like this was a piece that I just needed to stitch on while I kind of worked through my feelings about Notre Dame and how that was affecting me, etc. So here is my piece. And so this is a reproduction of a French sampler done by Justine when she was 8 years old. And I am stitching this, okay, that color is a little more accurate. I'm stitching this on, I think it's a 40 count hand-dyed fibers linen from back when she was doing linen. Yeah, 40 count. And then Sylvia did, she did a light coffee antique with, light coffee antiqued with walnut spray. So I will show you a picture of what the whole sampler looks like. Which is not easy to see, but you get the idea. So I'm working up here in this corner. It's a beautiful sampler. It took me a very, very long time to find the chart for it. And I probably bought this, this is copyright 2005. This was actually a reprint. And so I probably bought it 2005, 2006-ish. And anyway, so it's very difficult to find. And I will not promote the shop that I purchased it from because it resulted in me having to file a complaint. So back to this. So this is charted in, I want to say it's charted in cottons, but then there's also like NPIs. Where's the dang thread list? Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm rambling now at this point. Okay, so they give you DMC, Gentle Arts, Dinky Dyes, Needlepoint Silk. I ended up just doing my own conversion to silks, and I'm using a combination of a Verissois, some Soie Cristal, Gloriana, so some greens, some yellows, and then there's a blue in here someplace. There's the blue. That's a Gloriana. So, as I was working on this, as is often the case when I am trying to work through something mentally or emotionally, I tend to take it out on my stitching. So it started bothering me that the color that I am using here was more pink than red. And so I got it in my head that I wanted to rip all of that out and restitch it in red. So I started doing that. Then I got it in my head that I did not like this very pale yellow, like on the birds, that I wanted that to be more gold. So I started ripping that out and restitching it. And I tried about 6 different golds before I kind of found something that I liked. So this became a whole lot of, nope, I don't like it. 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 Which led for a very frustrating week of stitching. And needless to say, I did not complete my homework assignment because I was so, you know, I spent so much time debating. And you can't, like, if you have to rip back, you can count your stitches where you restitch. But I was doing so much back and forth that it was just sort of a logistical nightmare to try and count the stitches. So I just said, okay, I'm done with this. So I'm happy that I got this back out. I do feel pretty happy with the change that I made to the golds that I'm working on. And yes, that's upside down. And I did ultimately decide that I liked the slightly pinkish color as opposed to red. With the red thread, it started, like with the red and the yellow and the blue and the green, it started to look really kind of primary colors, and I wasn't liking the look of that. So I went back to the slightly more pink tone. About the only thing I'm happy with is my blue and my green. And this kind of mustard color here. I'm happy with that. So this is going to require a little more thought and a little more love before it kind of gets back to where I want it to be and I can move forward. But I dearly, dearly love this sampler, and I love that it has the memory of being started in Paris. And I have my Sajou Eiffel Tower scissors that I bought from Sajou while I was there. That was like, you know, one thing I had to buy while I was there was some Eiffel Tower scissors from Sajou. So these live in here in scissor jail. So anyway, so that was week 8. Week 9 was Havoc at Hogwarts, and so it had to do with, there were 2 tasks. One was for bothering the Whomping Willow, and so for that you had to stitch on something, that was either, like, you had to stitch on a grass or a tree or a shrub, or with green thread. And while I was working on Justine, I kind of I had another piece that was calling to me, so I decided to get it out. Also, side note, Justine is not in my Stitch 9. This piece is not in my Stitch 9 either, but at that point I didn't care. So this is living in another laminate bag that was made for me. Here's the inside. And I love the size of this bag and the other one. I don't normally like really big bags like this, but my 11 by 11 Q-snap fits down in it, which is great. So this piece, I started this for Mania 2 years ago. And I started it because I was having this has lived in, been kitted up in my closet for years. And what's the difference with having it kitted up, unstarted in my closet versus having a few stitches in it in my closet? I've since learned what the difference is between that, because one bothers me and one doesn't. So, but I started this for Mania 2 years ago, and since we were getting close to Mania and everybody was, doing their Mania plans and whatever, I decided that I was going to get this out because I hadn't worked on it since then. So this is the 1809 Frances Eden sampler by Handwork Samplers. And I take all of my charts out of the plastic sleeves, and I have them in notebooks, which is why they're all like this. But this is the Frances Eden sampler. It's an Adam and Eve sampler. It's super colorful. And I bought this 2005, 2006. It was probably around the same time. So, and then a friend of mine actually kitted it up for me. So we decided that we wanted to do ours the same exact way that Siobhan did hers. And so we got the same color linen, which I think is, I want to say it's vintage exemplar, but don't quote me on that. I think I have a note in here someplace. Vintage exemplar, 40 count, Lakeside. And then the Vicki Clayton hand-dyed fibers silks. So some of them came like this and some of them came on spools. And Emily from Eclectic Possessions just recently introduced me to these fun rings. They unscrew and they're flexible wires. And they don't have the same problem that those binder rings have, that they get kind of, wonky. So I immediately put my silks on that because they had just been loose in a bag. So much appreciated. And so I worked on this. When I started it, when I picked it up, I'll say it that way. When I picked it up, all I had really was this part of the tree and the snake and a little bit of the hill. And so for working on grass or a tree, I did a little more of the hill, and then I did the center of the tree here. And that got me what I needed as far as stitch count went for that homework. And then I decided while I had it, out, I would use it for one of the April extra credits, which was to stitch on something that was designed before 1990. And so this being a reproduction sampler that was done in 1890, it fit the bill. So I did a little more work on this, and I started filling in the tree, and I got Eve done, and I think I did the outline of the crown. And then that's as far as I got on that for then. So I was able to cross off an extra credit, which was great. And then the second task for week 9 was to stitch on a building to represent the secret room. And because you told the secret of the secret room, or you could do penalty stitches if you felt like you kept the secret of the secret room. And so I decided to do penalty stitches to go back to Colonial Garden. And so I worked more on Colonial Garden. And then while I had it out and I was on kind of a roll with extra credit, there was another extra credit assignment for that was 200 stitches for something that sucks the life out of you because you've been attacked by a Dementor. And so I stitched on Colonial Garden, got some more stitches in there. And then I actually just kept going with Colonial Garden because at that point I was so close that I just wanted it done. And so I just kept on with it and got it finished. I think I got it. My goal was to get it finished before the end of April, and I met that goal. I think I finished it on the 29th or something. So Colonial Garden done, off my list. And so, you know, typically when we get to the end of the month, especially if there's like, you know, part of the week is in April, part of the week is in May, usually we end up with some kind of little short assignments for Magical Stitches. But for this time, they decided to do something totally different, which was Quidditch matches. And so we were going to have a total of 4 Quidditch matches. They would last 3 days apiece. And, you know, 2 houses would participate in a match, the other 2 houses, and so they'd be paired up, and then we'd switch. And then, you know, whoever was the winner, then those 2 would go up against each other. So the first Quidditch match, and it was basically, you can stitch on whatever you want, as many projects as you want, or as few. And the amount of stitches that you stitch would count towards, you know, the total for your house. And so I decided that what I wanted to do was to just stick with one project for 3 days and just see how much I could get done on it. You know, at this point too, it was basically the beginning of Mania. My initial idea was that, my initial idea was that I was going to do a Monogamania like Emily and Jessie Marie were doing, but then also working in, you know, Magical Stitches homework as well. I think at that point there was just, you know, just so much going on, and I just couldn't do it. So I just figured, you know what, I'm just going to focus on, you know, one project for 3 days, and then the next Quidditch match I'll work on something else. And I was really enjoying Frances Eden, so I got Frances Eden back out and did some more on her. So for the Quidditch match, I ended up, and that's when I started dealing with all this stuff. So I wasn't getting a lot of stitches in, but I filled in her crown, and I filled in more of the tree. And then I think I did some of the grass underneath her feet. So I'm really loving this. The colors are just really bright and cheerful, and that's closer to the color of the fabric. So really, really enjoyed this piece. So I worked on that for 3 days, and then we started and I think I only got like 300 stitches in, or 400 stitches in, or something like that. It wasn't a whole lot. Oh, I need to put this back. And then for the second Quidditch match, that started on a Saturday. And so I got to do something fun that day. I went to a workshop with my guild, and it was with Beth of Heartstring Samplery. And so she did two pieces. One was a little Orts and Pins jar. I didn't take that one, but then the second piece was a reproduction sampler, an Adam and Eve sampler, which of course you know I love, since I just showed you one. But she has been working on reproducing this for a while. It's for a local historical society. The original sampler is from the collection of the Sandy Historical Society Museum. That's right there where she lives. And the reason that the museum was looking to have someone reproduce it is because the original is in very, very poor shape. It has a large tear in it, and Beth said it looks like someone had washed it with agitation at some point, because all of the threads had run, and so there's a good bit of staining and color running from the threads. So the original is just not really in good shape, and so they wanted to be able to display a reproduction of it. And so Beth was working on that, and then when we talked with her about it, decided that she would come and teach the sampler and present it to our group so that we could stitch it. So this is called the Mary Pearson sampler, and this is the piece. So up at the top, it's got an Adam and Eve. It's got these kind of Ohio Star looking designs that are actually similar to some that are on And They Send. These big bunches of flowers. It has a verse, and then it says Mary Pearson underneath it. Beth said she thinks that she had probably dated this and then picked it back out, because there is no date on here. It just says Mary Pearson, her work, but then there's a large gap here. So there may have been a year there. There may have been her age there. But of course, once the sampler had been washed, you can't really tell if there were stitches there originally or not. So the verse says, let me see if I can read it. Make much of precious time while in your power. Be careful well to husband every hour. For time will come when you shall sore lament the unhappy minutes that you have misspent. Mary Pearson, her work. And it is done on Zweigart 40 count cream linen with DMC threads. And so I went ahead and then at the bottom is this pastoral scene. You can see a lot of this staining, and the poor little sheep are blue now. But there's a lady and her gentleman. There's a little pond. There are some little sheep. There's this house with a pink side, this little bird, and these, this butterfly up here, this big tree, these smaller trees in the distance. It's got a very sweet border. So I think it's just a fun little sampler. And so here's a picture of the reproduction. And there's some specialty stitches in it. I am going to insert a photo here. Of a close-up of the snake by Adam and Eve, because he's fantastic. Just look at him. So, so Beth came, taught this, and I decided to go ahead and start this. And this is what I worked on for Quidditch Match 2. And it's a, fairly big piece, even for being on 40 count. And so this is where I got to. So I started in the words. I just started in the center. And then I just sort of started working my way up because I want to get to Adam and Eve. So I did this over one portion here that says Adam and Eve. And that's really all I got done in my 3 nights of stitching because, yeah. And here is a beautiful new minder that I will tell you more about momentarily, but it's like a mosaic floor. So I just thought it was really beautiful. And I thought it was appropriate to put on this piece. So that's as much as I got done. When I went to Guild the other night, our president had, she actually coffee dyed or tea dyed her fabric because she wanted it to be a little darker, have a little more interest. And so I am contemplating, since we are using DMC, I am contemplating maybe aging it or doing something along those lines after I stitch it, just to give it a little more interest. And here are all the DMCs, lots of pretty colors. And another one of these wire rings came in handy. So, and this is living in a Momely bag from Emily with pretty fans on it, which also made me think about Paris and Notre Dame and Marie Antoinette and all of that. And there's the inside, which I just love. So, and the needle minder came from Emily as well. So, worked on that for 3 nights, and like I said, I was not feeling great, so my stitching was a little close to non-existent. So that was Quidditch match 2. Now, unfortunately, that's when everything kind of went to hell in a handbasket in the School of Magical Stitches. I won't go into all the drama because there's no need for it, but suffice it to say, you know, when I joined Magical Stitches, you know, they ask you when you fill out the sorting form, what your first, second, third choices of houses are, and they would try to put you in, you know, your first choice house if they could, but they're also trying to keep the houses even. So I think I put Slytherin down as my 3rd choice, and that's the house I ended up in. And so at first I was kind of like, oh, because 99% of the time nobody picks Slytherin as their first house. They just don't. And that's part of the reason why, you know, they have to try to kind of keep it even. Otherwise everybody would be in Gryffindor, even though Gryffindor was my 2nd choice. But regardless, I have so enjoyed my time in Slytherin, and I think it is a fantastic house. We have had so many people that are fun and really get into the spirit of the challenges, and so supportive of each other, and making sure that everybody knows, because this stuff can get confusing, but making sure everybody knows what the homework is, what's okay, what's not okay, you know, when it's due, you know, that sort of thing. If they see people that, you know, have not yet updated and we're getting close to a deadline, they would go in and, you know, remind people to go in and update their stuff. I mean, just those sorts of things. Super supportive, super, you know, camaraderie in there. And unfortunately, with everything that happened over the Quidditch matches, they were stopped after the second one. And a lot of people left. A lot of Slytherins. I'll just say that. Unfortunately, some of my favorite people left. And so I was very sad about that. And, you know, that was also playing into how much I stitched in that second Quidditch match, because I was just so bummed, you know, about the whole thing. And yes, it's only stitching, and yes, it's made up points and whatever. But, you know, to an extent, you have to buy into that suspension of disbelief just a little bit, right? So anyway, I'm still in Magical Stitches. I'm still doing my thing. I'm still in Slytherin House. They did do a resorting, and I requested to stay in Slytherin. And I'm happy with that decision. So that was it for the Quidditch matches. One thing that did spawn was a new group that is taking kind of a similar approach to the Lord of the Rings. So there's stitching challenges, there's reading challenges, and I think the name of that group is like Stitchy Quest to win the One Ring or something. It starts with Stitchy Quest, so if you look for that, you will find it. So, you know, I figure I love Lord of the Rings. I'm excited about that too. So I will also use that as a way to continue to challenge myself to get things done. So while I was trying to figure out what I was doing and thinking about, you know, finishing up working on Mary Pearson for 3 days and not knowing what the homework was going to look like since the Quidditch matches were canceled and just all of that, I did decide that since I had finished Colonial Garden, which was kind of my focus on a finished piece, I thought, okay, I'm going to do my little Tiny Decisions app wheel, spin that for my Stitch 9 pieces and see which one I may want to kind of focus on a finish next. And so what came up was Anniversaries of the Heart, which was probably a good thing because I need to focus on that. So I got Anniversaries of the Heart out and I worked on it. I started working on it, and then and they announced the homework, and so the homework was, because of all the turmoil and everything and things were a little bit in flux, the homework was basically stitch 100 stitches on a piece. That's it. Any piece, just 100 stitches, and then you can spend the rest of your week working on extra credit or whatever. So I picked up Anniversaries of the Heart, and I couldn't remember. I thought that I may have like targeted this for one of the extra credit challenges, the year-long extra credit challenges. So I couldn't remember, and so I was sort of hedging my bets, like, okay, if I haven't started that, then I'll use it for my 100 stitches and then I'll work on that. Or if I have started that, then I'll focus on that and then do my 100 stitches or whatever. So I ended up working on this most of the week, but then and I did finally figure out that yes, I had actually started working on it for one of the ultimate challenges, so that's what I continued to count my stitches towards, which for those you have to have 1,000 stitches. But as of last night, I finished this block. So I was working on this block. This is block 10, and it's all done. This block is dedicated to Eric because his birthday is in October. And I'm super happy with it. It literally took me like 3 nights to fill in this pumpkin. I kid you not. And probably part of the reason for that was that I didn't want to go just back and forth. And so I was kind of working on, you know, these sort of crescent shapes, so that my variegated thread would kind of show up in that direction a little bit. And the variation is subtle, but I'm happy with how it turned out. And I didn't have stripy lines across my pumpkin. So I finished this last night, super happy with it. So this is my second finish. Even though my piece isn't finished, each of these blocks is a chart in and unto itself. So, all done with that. There's my Ouija board needle minder. So, I have not yet finished my 1,000 stitches. I didn't have that much left. So I'm going to keep going on this, and I'm just going to start on the next block. So, this block was called Pumpkin Farm. Blackbird Designs. I'm stitching this on 40 count vintage exemplar. Mostly the called for threads. They're all a combination of like crescent colors, gentle arts, weeks. So the next block is the November block. I'll take it out of here because I have a note. It's called Evergreen Lane. So I'm going to dedicate this one to my sister and Eric's sister. Both of their birthdays are in November. So I think what I'm going to do is I don't want to put both of them in like this little thing together because I don't want them to look like they're a couple. Because I want it to be clear that they're individuals, right? So what I was thinking about doing is moving the house down and having, you know, one of them down here and one of them up here. But I don't really know how that's going to look. So I think I may kind of play around in my charting software and see what I can come up with. But I can at least get started on the border. So that's the next one to do. And I've pulled the threads for the border. That's all I've done, so that I can get started on it. And so there's the November block and then the December block, and then there's a big bonus block that goes at the end. So I still have a ways to go. This is kind of the layout. So I just finished October, so I need to do November, December, and this bonus block. So, so since I was working on that for the Ultimate Challenge, and I didn't want to like have to break up my stitches to do the 100 stitches and then go back because that's just a pain in the butt, I decided to just get out something easy. So on Saturday night, I just picked up this, my Santa's still in here, my Harry Potter bag from Socks for Mom. And I decided to work on Simple Things, which is another one of my Stitch 9 pieces, because I thought, okay, I can just knock out 100 stitches and that'll be easy. So I decided to work on the border, and I basically kind of came across here and then went up this side, and that was my 100 stitches. Now, I did figure out that I have a miscount right here. So I'm gonna have to rip this out and fix that and then restitch the top, but that's a problem for another day. And so this is obviously on R&R, 30 count. And I am using whatever the called for is. 30 count Marva's blend by R&R, and it's in the called for weeks. And it's all weeks. All weeks, all the time. So, my Santa needs to go back in his bag. So, worked on that, did my 100 stitches, and then went back to Anniversaries of the Heart last night. So, my plan is, so here's what's coming up. So that's what I've been working on, and I'm sorry if that was a little convoluted. That is just the easiest way for me to figure out what I worked on and when and why. So I know I talked about doing vlogs, but yeah. Yeah. So, plans. I'm gonna keep going on Anniversaries of the Heart and see if I can knock out the rest of the stitches that I need for that ultimate challenge so that I can just knock that out. It is dark 13 stitching today, so I think I'm gonna get out Black and Sky and work on it. And then for this week's homework, we're doing so we're in year 4 now, so we're reading Goblet of Fire. I'm still working on Prisoner of Azkaban, but I hope to have it finished soon-ish so I can start Goblet of Fire. So year 4, week 2, we're doing the Tri-Wizard Tournament. And so we had to provide a list of up to 20 whips. I had 20 and then finished Colonial Garden, so I'm down to 19. And so the homework for this week was to work on project number 17 on your list if you had 17 or more whips, because I think the Tri-Wizard Tournament this was like the 17th time or something, I don't know, whatever. So the 17th whip on my list is in my Christine bag. Stitch all the things. So the 17th project on my list is From the Deep. Plum Street Samplers. I just have a teeny little start on it. So you may remember that it's a long skinny piece, and I didn't bring the chart in here, but it's a long skinny piece that's got words up at the top, and then at the bottom it's got a circular design that has a mermaid in it, some seaweed, and then it's all filled in. And I have a frame, a specific circular frame that I want to put this in. So I'm just going to stitch that part of it. I'm not going to stitch the words at the top. So this is where I'm at. I think I have to put in 700 stitches, so I will figure out when I need to get that started, and that'll be worked on this week. So I'll probably do Black and Sky this week. I'll probably do this week, and then I'll see where I'm at, and then I may go back to Anniversaries of the Heart. We'll see where I'm at. So that's my plan stitching wise. And this coming weekend, I am actually going on another quilt retreat, one of our day retreats. So I'm looking forward to that, and I was trying to kind of decide what I wanted to work on. Since I finished my Foxtails quilt top last time, I think that instead of starting something new, I'm going to bring a few little different things that I want to get finished and kind of work on that. Some stitching FFOing I need to do. I have a little project that I want to make that's like a mat that sits under your sewing machine that has pockets on the front of it that like hang off the front of the table. It's called an undercover maker's mat. So I think I want to work on that, and I'm just going to try to be sort of low-key. I just don't feel like starting another quilt right now, and the ones that I have that are in progress kind of require decision making and fabric pulling, so I'm just going to go easy. So that's my plan for that. I wanted to share a couple of things that were gifted to me. I showed you one of the needle minders that came from Mad for Minders. These are the other two that came, and I absolutely adore them. So I think I will find the perfect projects to put these on. I love them. So the mosaic tile one was on here too. So love those. Thank you, thank you. And then these were also gifted to me. I believe that this one is a Mad for Minders one as well. Love that. Perfect for dark 13 stitching. And then this one, which is a Slytherin House Crest. And this came from Denkai Designs, which you guys have probably all heard of. So I love this Slytherin. So I will have to find something good to put that on. And Beth had, so when Beth was here, she had a trunk show, which, oh my God, just seeing some of her pieces in person is fantastic. But then she also had these little needle nannies, and she had one of the Adam and Eve from Sparrow. So I wanted that. So that came home with me. It's hard to see. Anyway, and speaking of Sparrow, so Sparrow was released as her 100th design, and she is working on the companion piece to it, which will be her 200th design that is set to coincide with market in the fall, I believe. So you may see me getting Sparrow out here and working on it, because now I have like a mission. Not that I think I'm gonna get it done, but because I have so many things that need to be done. But anyway, now I really want to work on Sparrow. And Emily doing her Monogamania with Sparrow is killing me, because just looking at it is fantastic. Okay, so I think that's everything that I had to show you. So I have the opportunity to do a giveaway. I know I don't do giveaways very often on my channel, and I just don't. So remember a few weeks ago, or in my last video, or the one before it, where I showed you my new Tula Pink book that I got with my gift certificate to Amazon? So at the end of April, I went to Quilt Guild and I won the door prize. And guess what the door prize was? So, since I already have this, I thought I would do a giveaway for this book. And it's a fabulous book. I flipped through it a little bit last time. The only thing that I want to bring your attention to is that there is a tear right here in the front cover. You can kind of see it goes through a few pages. That may be why they had it as a giveaway door prize. So there is a tear on the front, so if you have a problem with that, don't enter. But lots of beautiful quilts in here that you could use any fabrics with. You don't have to use Tula Pink fabrics with them, but of course that makes them more awesome. So if you would like to enter this giveaway, and I will choose a winner, before my next video, or whenever I record next, which will probably be a month. So don't say giveaway. And if you want to enter for this book, you can be international, you can be domestic. I'm okay either way. But that's probably going to be super expensive to mail international. Anyway, I don't care. But I just realized, oh my gosh, this is a heavy book. Tell me what your favorite Tula Pink line is. And if you don't have a favorite Tula Pink line, then go look at her fabric and find one that you like. All right, so don't say giveaway. You have about a month. Tell me what your favorite Tula Pink line is, fabric line. All right. Thanks so much, guys. And I'm excited about this. I'm excited for you guys. The book is awesome. So somebody I hope will super enjoy it. Okay, that's all I got. Enjoy your dark 13 stitching, and hopefully I'll sound a little better the next time I see you. Enjoy the rest of your mania if you're doing mania, and thanks for liking and subscribing and commenting. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Bye.